Welcome back, everybody. I was watching the Gerfy man on YouTube last week. I'm sure you've seen it. He did his best thing he's picked up since he's been on YouTube, and sort of invited people to do their own. And being as I've sort of recently finished my sort of hardcore collecting, I thought it seemed a good time for me to do kind of the same thing, really. So this is kind of in response to the Gerfmeister, and it got me kind of thinking, what was my sort of best thing I'd picked up since being on YouTube? And I mean, I could say anything really, because all in its own way, it's all, you know, I love it all. So to pick out one thing, in some ways, is quite difficult. And I think probably the best thing about being on YouTube is, you know, is meeting and conversing with all you guys out there, you know, that in this lovely little community we've got going. But anyway, beside the point, the best thing I've bought, like I say, I was thinking about it, and the kind of more you think about it, the more tricky it becomes, really. So many things I could sort of say for different reasons, but anyway, I think I've sort of narrowed it down to 3 items, which I was sort of picking from, and it's very difficult, I've got to say, very, very difficult, but I think it don't matter, it's only a bit of fun at the end of the day. So I think the first thing, I was so close, and I'm sure I've possibly said this before, but the first thing that I was sort of really torn between was the mighty, I don't know if you can see it there, the mighty Neo Geo AES. I was so close to saying that. I never thought I'd buy another one. You know, whenever it, I don't know how long I've had it now, a couple of years maybe. But I thought that ship had sailed, you know, I'd had them and sold them too many times in the past, and I thought there's no way I'm going to pay it again to have another one. But for whatever reason, you know, I went a bit crazy and I got one, and I'm delighted to have it, and I've no intention of ever selling it again. So, you know, so the mighty AES is phenomenal. I'm chuffed to bits to have it back, and like I say, it's going nowhere. But what could be even more special than that, you might think? Well, there's another 2 things. I'm not saying these are better than that, but they're kind of a bit more special to me, perhaps. The first one is, and it may come as no surprise, both of these items are Sega related. So the first one is something I'd never had in the past. Don't know why, it passed me by at the time. I'd moved on, you know, life had progressed, you know, and took over for whatever reason. And it's always something since I've sort of started recollecting, it's always something that I thought, I kind of like that, but it's always been a little bit expensive, and it's always been a case of, I don't want to pay that, I'll wait to see if it comes up a bit cheaper. And of course, they never do they? You should have just bought it initially way back when you wanted it, when it was half the price that it is now. But anyway, with the great and wonderful help of the legend that is Craig, I eventually got this, and it's Suzuki Gameworks, which is obviously a Japanese Dreamcast release. Unfortunately, this is volume 1. It does say somewhere. yeah, on the side. And if you can see that down there, volume 1. Unfortunately, there was never a volume 2. It's kind of a weird release because it's in like a book form. Obviously, you get the disc in the sleeve there, and then throughout the book it highlights different bits about the games in the collection, one of which is the mighty Outrun. But yeah, it's got 5 arcade Yu Suzuki games on this, and it never was released anywhere but Japan. Just a shame they didn't do more of these. But anyway, it comes with Hang On, Space Harrier, Outrun, Afterburner and Power Drift, all stunningly good games. And that kind of emulated arcade versions of those games. Fantastic collection. I've no idea what it sells for now, but I'm just delighted to have it. That's me in a nutshell, really. Beautiful Sega arcade goodness. So, what could possibly be better than that? Well, the clue is in the picture, really. This, again, much like Gameworks, is something, well, it's kind of more than Gameworks, really, because it's more expensive. So it was never really on the cards that I'd ever thought I would buy it, down to the price. And being the crazy Outrun fan that I am, you know, it's the greatest game ever made, both of them. End of. No discussion needed. This was always a hole in my collection, and I'm talking about the Japanese version of Outrun 2 SP on the PS2, which only came out in Japan. This is kind of an updated release, if you like, of 2006 Coast to Coast that only came out in Japan, like I say. And it's not that it's particularly any better than this. It's got a few enhancements from what I've read, but it's nothing that's ever sort of bothered me. But it was just a hole in my collection, and being the crazy Outrun fan that I am, it was something I always wanted. So I've no idea what it sells for now, but it was expensive a few years ago. And again, thanks to the legend that is Craig, cheers mate, I've managed to sort of add this to the collection, thanks to Craig. And it's just an awesome, you know, it's just an awesome item to have, and a great compliment to the 2 Xbox games. So, you know, I'm just chuffed to have it. It's because I'm mad about Outrun. This is my favourite piece that I've bought since being on YouTube. But there we go. Anyway, bit of fun. Be great to see a few more of these. What's your favourite item since you've been on YouTube, or what's your favourite item in general? Just leave it in the comments. You know, I love reading the comments. So if you've got a favourite item in your collection, leave it in the comments. Be great to hear. But thanks for watching anyway. Hope to see you soon. Sayonara.